Driving back to what used to be home, passing by those little towns I know so well, stopping for gas and then I'm behind the wheel again. Driving is like a spiritual cleanse, where every mile is a new beginning and every bend holds a new end.
Hey friends, welcome to my channel. In this video, I'll show you how to make layered strawberry sponge cake from scratch. First step is preheat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm actually doubling the recipe. Below in the description, I'll have the recipe that's 1x. I'm 2xing it today. So I'm prepping 2 spring forms. For sponge cake, you actually want to use not greased spring forms. What I did is I cut parchment paper and I put it at the bottom. So next up is we're going to be mixing our dry ingredients. 2 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, half a teaspoon of salt. So I'm gonna do half. Set aside the flour, the baking powder, and salt, and now we'll be working on the eggs. So you're going to be separating 6 eggs, egg yolk and egg white. So for the egg white bowl, it's very important to make sure that it has no grease on it, that it's extra sparkling clean, because that way the egg white will actually whip. So that's 6 eggs separated, and then to the egg white mixture, we'll be adding 4 egg whites more. I have 6 in here, but I'm going to measure out just 4. I've separated 6 eggs, 6 egg yolks, and 6 egg whites, and I've separately added 4 more egg whites into here. So next up is we are going to be separately mixing this until it gets really nice and fluffy. So in each bowl, we'll be putting 1 cup of granulated sugar. 1 cup goes in here. The way to mix the egg white with the sugar is to do it gradually. So I'm gonna start the mixer at slow speed for a little bit, and then I'm going to start slowly pouring the sugar in, and occasionally going all the way to high speed, adding a bit more sugar, going back to high speed. So you see how I'm slowing it down, adding more of the sugar at low speed and then speeding it up again. And so now that we've sort of gradually incorporated the sugar, I'm going to let it go on high speed for about, it depends, but about 4 or 5 minutes, until we basically have meringue and it will be all nice, white and fluffy. All right, so this is how you know when it's ready. It's become stiff. As they say, it forms stiff peaks. It really increased in size and volume, and also it's very white. Now we'll mix the egg yolk and sugar mixture until it also increases in volume and becomes nice and fluffy. Let's go. This is ready. It's also increased in volume. Into the egg yolk mixture, we'll be adding half a cup of water mixed with 3 to 4 teaspoons of vanilla extract, also slowly incorporating it at low speed. There, you really, at this point, the key is not to deflate the batter. The trick to making great sponge cake from scratch is to, once you get to this point, you have these nice fluffy egg whites and egg yolks, is not to deflate them. So you want to do that by mixing as little as possible after this point. Your best friend here is the spatula, and pre-mixing the dry ingredients. So put the dry ingredients through a sieve like this. Okay, and from now on, you will be only hand mixing things. So I will be incorporating the flour, the mixture, into the egg yolk mixture by hand with this sort of technique. At this point, it's all about sort of that touch and mixing as little as possible. So next up is to add a little bit of the egg white into the egg yolk mixture and to lighten it just a little bit. Again, you want to use as few stirs as possible. So you can see that I've lightened it a little bit, but it's still very fluffy. So add more. So you have this beautiful fluffy batter that we're making here right now. This is the best sponge cake recipe I've ever discovered, and I've been making it for years. So now we're ready to put the remainder of the egg white into the egg yolk mixture. This is where the magic touch comes into play, because I will be trying to incorporate the two, mixing as little as possible so that I don't deflate it. It's kind of like a souffle. So I'm really sharing some of my baking secrets with you, baking tips and techniques, and this is definitely the key technique to making good sponge cake. So this is ready. Even when I do see a little bit of those chunks still there of egg white, but I don't want to mix it any more than this. There. And now we're going to be trying to separate it equally into these two spring forms. Again, remember that I am making 2x the recipe that I'm including in the description below. I'm making a very special birthday cake today. We'll have many people. That's why I decided to make 2 sponge cakes today, is to make sure that the cake is really impressive and tall, and that there's also just enough for everyone. So now you want to lightly kind of spread it out evenly, like this. So it's just really flat at the top. Second one as well. This goes into the preheated oven at 350 degrees. All right, we're gonna set the timer to 35 minutes. And while this is in the oven, I can prep the cream. And the cream is going to be my vanilla custard cream. That link in bio below, there's a video where I show how to make that cream. I let the 2 sponge cake cool, and now I will show you how to cut them into slices. So to take it out, we'll run a knife along the edge. It should just come out like this. And you can actually see, because we put the parchment paper in, it just comes out like easily like this. So the fact that it's sticking to the side is great, because anytime you have something like a sponge cake or an angel food cake, you want it to stick to the sides, because that's how it kind of climbs the spring form and expands and rises. There you go. Beautiful sponge cake. I'm not gonna break it, but like if you kind of press down a little bit, has that spring to it, so it's like a sponge cake. Next, I will show you a little baking trick, and that is how to cut this. So what I'll do is, first of all, I'll decide, I think this could be, you could do it 3 or 2 layers. Because I have 2 today, I will just actually cut it in 2. So what you do is you want to create this incision just halfway down. So you kind of go around rotating like this. And next up is I'm just going to take a regular thread like this, and I'm going to cut about 2 feet in length of this. And I'm going to use this for cutting. So what I'll do is I'll insert it like this into the incision. Where it crosses over, I'm just pulling it through straight, and it comes out. And then what you will have is a perfectly sliced sponge cake. And this is particularly good for these soft cakes like a sponge cake and an angel food cake. So the sponge cake is ready. They're each cut into 2 layers. And next up is prepping the strawberries, since we are making a layered strawberry sponge cake from scratch. Alright, so I prepped this vanilla custard cream earlier. It has cooled down completely. Link for the recipe in the description or the card up here. So now I will show you how to complete and assemble the sponge cake. Before I mix this to kind of lighten it up again, I will mix the whipping cream. I will be using 2 of these today because one of them will go in here to go in between the layers, and the second one will go on top of the cake. I know it looks like a lot, but it is a big cake. Remember, I doubled the proportion. So again, in the description, I have the recipe 1x, and right now I'm basically just doing it 2x. 4 of these. It is a lot of whipping cream. So what I do to first start it on low speed and then turn it up slowly as it thickens. This is something you have to keep watching because you don't want to turn it into butter. And I'm going to be covering it like this and turning up this speed. You want to beat the whipping cream for about 95%, so not all the way. Because next what I'll do is I will mix the vanilla cream a little bit first. So mixing the vanilla custard like this helps to break it up and to just smooth it out more. So I'll do it a little bit again before I incorporate the whipped cream into it. So now I will add half of the whipped cream to this because the other half I will use for the top of the cake. Before I start mixing it, I will do it by hand first. So I scrape the sides. So now I can whip it, but not for too much. All right, and this is basically how I make my secret vanilla cream that I use in a lot of my signature desserts. Like for example, this sponge cake. You'll see it's just this beautiful, almost, I don't know, like defrosted ice cream consistency. So remember the whipped cream that we only did 95% of it? So I'm gonna go ahead and finish mixing that. I have the cake pedestal plate ready. I'm gonna put it here in the center. There you go. For the cream, the last step is to add the chopped strawberries. So I'm going to hand fold it in like this. I'll use the spoon to put the cream on top of the layers like this. I really wanted this cake to be nice and tall. It's a special birthday today. This was requested, a layered strawberry sponge cake. So in order to do this, I decided to also share with you a lot of my secret recipes for the custard cream and the sponge cake. I do really think it's the best sponge cake recipe there is. Took me a while to find it, but once I did and I fine-tuned it more, it basically went into my digital recipe keeper. So the bottom, I decided to pick the bottom and invert it. And so now you can see, you know, there's where it's a bit lower one side and place the taller side on that side. So there you go. It's basically perfectly done. I mean, I definitely have some extra cream. I could have been more generous. So lastly is I will prep the sides like this. I will run my spatula along the sides to even it out like this. So anything that's kind of fell off, it's okay. Just a little bit. In the end, when I bake cakes and dessert, I don't try to make it look too much like a factory. I think it needs to look like it was homemade. I decided to move the flowers over here. All right, so completing the cake, this is the most fun part. You know what they say in any work, 95% is perspiration and 5% is inspiration. So this is the moment for inspiration where we can create a cake, finish it. So I'm going to put it on top here like this. As always, use my spatula. It's my best friend in baking. So I'll show you how I do the sides. The strawberries are just coming out. I guess that's okay. Strawberry cake. So the harder part will be finishing this corner here. And so the way I'll do it is sort of like, it's kind of like sculptural work. So right now I'm applying the cream roughly, and then I'll go over and really smooth everything out. Now I'm just running my knife along the edge to even it out. And I'm actually putting some cream back. You know, when you're creating something like this, there's always going to be a little bit of extra material, you know, you can't do it 100%. I want it pretty even, but I'm not going to overdo it because it is actually a little bit that intentional look that it looks, again, like homemade cake, because I think anything baked from scratch at home is always instantly a million times better. I evened out the layered strawberry sponge cake like this. One strawberry at the top, so I picked a bigger one for that. All right, the last strawberry. So this completes my baking lesson video. I showed you how to make this layered strawberry sponge cake. And I think it's a wonderful cake for any celebration, especially around spring and summer. I think it's a wonderful birthday cake. So if you liked this baking lesson video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you look around my channel and you like what you see, please subscribe. I hope to see you again.
Neon lights in the fast lane life, riding high, reaching for the sky. I had it all but lost and fell back down again. Spent my time playing the game where every single day was a losing battle and every drink was a dead end. Eyes on the goal, don't lose control. I'm living fast, I've lost my soul, I'm driving to get away. Running through emotions high and low.